Okay, welcome back. This is going to be the final set of Pickems for me and the Budapest Major. We are already out of Diamond Coin contention. Stage 2 was a disaster, but Stage 3 was actually successful. So gold is still on, if that's something that really matters to you. For me, it's secondary. I'm just, doing this to entertain people more than anything else. But let's briefly take a look at our Stage 3 results. I've got the playoffs up here, but Stage 3... let's just look at my picks. Yeah, I got Furia in the wrong place. Same with Falcons. That cost me a spot. Took a risk on parry vision just because I didn't know what to expect out of Mongolz. They're a hard team to predict, and their form coming in hadn't been great. So I thought, hey, take a gander, take a wild stab on one of these sort of high potential, low expectation sides. Took parry vision for a ride. Didn't get me anything, but that's okay. Still managed a very comfortable 6. Even an 03 pick with Liquid, because if you didn't pick Liquid 03, I'm sorry, you're a bit delusional. No, I'm kidding. If you picked Liquid to go through, you're a bit insane. But to pick them 03, I think was, a good stab. It was a good take. Just put it quite simply. But let's talk about these playoff matchups quickly. Just as an introduction, let's talk about this. A fantastic set of games, right? Team Spirit Falcons, Vitality Mongolz, Furia NAVI, MOUZ FaZe Clan. Previewed these sorts of picks, these sorts of games a bit with Yumi and Trav on the double swing. If you haven't seen that already, go check it out. I made my picks, and those picks on that game, on that show, are a bit gamified. It's not quite directly who I believe is going to win every game. I can't pick like that. It's just not the format we do. But instead, that's what we're going to be doing today. I am going to be today taking a look at exactly who I think is going to win each matchup, break down logically why I think that, and roughly how good the odds are, I think, on each game. It's not going to be, I think, any shock in a lot of these cases, but I'm going to explain why I think these games are going to go the way they're going to go, and also, honestly, the reasons it could go wrong, the reasons it could change, the reasons a team might screw this up or might throw a spanner in the works in terms of making an upset happen. So let's get right into it. I think we should just get started with Falcons Spirit, the top game of the day, the game that I think I've given the biggest upset odds for in terms of my assessments. Yeah. So, Spirit Falcons, a quick overview of the sort of veto I expect. Something along the lines of Dust 2, Ancient, and Mirage. I think a Falcons pick of Nuke would actually be interesting. Just because I feel like Ancient is too good a map for a team built like Spirit. And Nuke is a bit of a flex for them. I get that Spirit can play Nuke and have been wanting to play Nuke, but I'd like to see that change up. You've had 3 days off, minimum 3 days off to prep for these playoffs. If you're a team that's supposed to be a favourite and you've got some time to prepare another map pick, I would try something like that. But realistically, the way I split these maps in terms of the ones I expect to happen, Dust 2, I'd say 60-40 Spirit. Nuke, I'd say, is a heavy 70-30 Falcons, but an Ancient is also, it's not too far off, it's pretty similar lines. And then Mirage is a bit of a coin flip. Not in terms of the actual recent win rates. I think in that sense, Falcons are far more likely to be winning this game. They're very heavy favourites. And in that sense, I do expect a 2-1, but I see it as a very close game. Spirit have the big win con, the biggest win con really in terms of a single player. With Donk, him going ballistic could switch all of this up. He could win any of the maps single-handedly. That's just realistic. We've seen him do it before. He can win random maps for them. He can absolutely pop off, dominate, upset the odds. So that's a big problem. And also, I talked about this on the double swing. Spirit, the way they played their Mirage, it just looked better. It looked more fluid. It looked stronger. Hell, it's not unrealistic to see them even pick that kind of map. I think Dust 2 will be on the table for them to pick, and they'll take it. They do like Dust 2 Chopper. It is one of his home maps historically. There's no reason, I think, for them to stray from that pick. But Mirage has looked good. I think they'll just be confident playing it no matter what. But Falcons, I think, are still going to win this. They have a sensible, rational favourite pick. A Spirit upset would not be impossible. I've even, relative to the other underdogs available in the double swing, said I would like Spirit the most to make the upset happen. I've got their odds 40 to 45%, sort of roughly the chance of them winning. But yeah, that's going to be one of the big games, I think, of the playoffs. Up next, let's talk about Vitality. Vitality are playing the Mongolz, and that should be a pretty comfortable series, in theory. Just looking at the maps, I think Dust 2 Mirage Inferno is quite likely. Between these two teams, we might see some very standard maps. But I think Vitality can go a number of different places with their pick. They can get an overpass or a nuke in there. That could be really an easy way to shake things up, take Mongolz into uncomfortable territory, as good as they are across the sort of standard maps. And they have a solid Ancient, but they're just not going to get to play it against Vitality, I don't think. They are just a bit weaker on some of these maps. They're always likely to get 2 maps they can win. They're always scrappy on those sort of Dust 2 Mirage Inferno type maps. But I think an overpass or a nuke in there, and Vitality just need to win 1 of 2. And that's a huge edge. Dust, I think, I still have 70-30 in favor of Vitality. They've looked really strong on it. They are a strong Dust team in general. They've got good calls, good players for the positions. They're just a good Dust team, I think. Mirage, I still see Vitality being favored, 60-40 roughly. Even though we've seen some good Mongolz performances on this map, I think it's a Vitality no-brainer. And finally, Inferno, the closest map of the series in terms of the most likely picks, is still a Vitality edge. Like, I think 55-45 is what I've written down. That's roughly where I see it going, and I expect a 2-0, especially if Vitality decide to flex their map pool a bit, bring in especially overpass. I just don't see the Mongolz having a lot of success on it unless they anticipate this kind of pick, prep it hard, and find some sort of counter. I think overpass would be a great place to go. Now, Mongolz, they have surpassed expectations just by being here, and so you have to factor that in. And also for WinCon reasons, like, you have to say, look, 910 has carried playoff maps at majors before. He's gone absolutely insane on playoff maps at majors. So there is a chance they have that kind of a performance combined with continued Mazinho and Control as sort of output, an important part of the equation, I think, for Mongolz to make this upset happen. I think that's how they can actually make it real. And I think once we get to Inferno, you could probably slip them as favorites. Like, if Mongolz have shown you the presence, the power, the potency to make it to map 3, they're all of a sudden just favorites. I think they are favorites at that point because it takes them being the better team at that point in the series to even get to the map 3. So Mongolz, 20% chance I've given them. I think this is a pretty simple, easy, clean Vitality win. But the outside chances are there. Our third series is going to be Furia NAVI. Look, I think there's a bigger chance Na'Vi upset Furia than Mongolz upset Vitality. I still think this should be a heavy favorite sort of matchup. Look, maps, we're looking at something like, honestly, it's very difficult. Train Inferno Mirage, I think, is quite likely. Train's likely a decider if someone doesn't pick it. Because Na'Vi could pick Train. They've liked Train. They've been picking Train at the major. If they go for something else, like a Dust 2 or a Nuke, just because of Furia's strength on Train, you'll see Train as a decider, I reckon. But anyway, the way I split that original trio, Train, Inferno, Mirage, the way I think it should play out, just based on some recent picks and bans. Train's 60-40 Furia. Inferno's honestly been 60-40 Furia as well. Mirage, 60-40 Na'Vi, as is Dust 2. I think Mirage and Dust 2 are the two maps Na'Vi, just based on the way they've been playing, would like to get to. If a nuke arrives, I think it's just a Furia map right now. I just don't see this Na'Vi team having much of a chance on that map. So, depends on the order of how it goes. Like, depends on the order of the maps we end up getting. I think the series is going to be really tough for Na'Vi no matter how the maps work out. Like, there's going to be a really tough series. But not unwinnable. Not unwinnable. Now, it's going to require a maintenance of superstar / just star level wonderful, which we, don't typically expect to see repeated. He has bursts, he has moments, and we've had a great run at this major from him just overall. But in the past, we've expected hot and cold out of wonderful. Honestly, the story of this year is more that Wonderful's just been decent and solid and just let down by the pieces whilst the internet screams and rages because the one POV they saw on the stream, he missed a shot. If you ignore that kind of volatile reaction, if you don't have that reaction in you and you actually watch Wonderful's game this year, he's been the most solid and consistent and reliable piece on Na'Vi. He's just not been a superstar, which is what we had here to make it happen. Alongside that, you probably would need a step up from Makaze. He's had a pretty poor major so far. A difficult major if you ever watch his POVs, but a poor one. And probably some kind of crazy map out of Bit. Like, that's usually the winning formula for this Na'Vi core. They're going to need a repeat of that. Plus, I think you honestly just need... It's a big if. I've put big if warning in my notes. If Molodon and Keserato are not perfect, and they have been at the major, they have been at recent events, recent grand finals, they've been putting up mass performances. Not necessarily always grand finals, but just in general, the recent events they played. K-Serato's been huge. You know, the way he activates in the late rounds, the way he like just converts everything so efficiently. If he's doing that, and the game plan's on point from Furia, yeah, I'm not even sure there's a version of Navi that can beat them. The thing is, they've not always been perfect. There's been a lot of series they played that have been close. As a team, Navi with this much prep time could pose a real threat. I think this is an interesting series. Furia should win it. Flukes happen, but Furia should win it. I'm going to put them through. That's going to be my pick. But it's far from a done deal as far as who should be the winner here. I just think it's not Furia. It's an aberration. All right, finally, in terms of quarterfinal games, MOUZ FaZe. This is a storybook game, right? This is the kind of game that can go either way, and that could, in any case, write some kind of story. Like MOUZ, as the start of their run, being overcoming FaZe, their big brother in a lot of ways, then having to go play Furia. If they can win that game, it's, again, crazy storybook moment for the team that has struggled to win all year to make a major final. Yeah, that would be insane. But this game against FaZe Clan, they have to get through first. Inferno, Mirage, Nuke, a likely trio. MOUZ, I think, should also try to flex Overpass. I think a lot of teams need to be trying that out. I think FaZe could also go into a Nuke, like as a pick. Inferno, I favor MOUZ by a hair. Mirage, I'll take FaZe. Nuke, I think, is a coin flip. An Overpass pick would be heavily in MOUZ's favor. It just depends how it plays out. Now, a lot of these things where I've said it's a coin flip or it's close, it's mostly just based on... It's not based on recent form and the actual play over the course of the year. If I just considered which team, on average, these two teams, on average, over the course of this year, how they played every map, it should be 80-20 MOUZ every single game. Every single game. However, when we add the context of the individuals that currently are firing on FaZe, the size of the moment as far as a major quarterfinal, the leaders of this team, the records we've had from this team, what they've shown us, like between these two teams, yeah, it's close. It's all of a sudden just close. In that sense, I don't think it's the most likely to have the upset. I think MOUZ should be favoured slightly more than Falcons are in their game. It's just, it feels difficult to write FaZe off in a very hard to define way. I know you know what I mean because you've watched these games. If you haven't been watching the games, the fuck, next year do that. The next major, watch all the games. But you'll understand if you follow CS long enough and you've watched how FaZe have played recently and the uptick from Jacob, the way the stars of Frozen Twists are just aligned and absolutely dominating. This is a terrifying FaZe clan. A difficult team to face. And one that in big stages with big moments under the leadership of Karrigan delivered magnificently in the past. I'm going to take MOUZ to go through. As I said, I'm going to try and use just pure logic, just who I actually believe is the better team, who plays the better CS, yada, yada, yada. Going to ignore the context of the moment and just place them there. Let's talk about these semi-finals now. This is where things get tough. Vitality Falcons. Now, I prepped every other game well ahead of time. I now have to move into pure improvisation because I decided not to plan the semis that well. You know, just have some vibes, have some feelings involved. Falcons versus Vitality. Firstly, be an absolutely insane clash of talent. Nico, Kyosuke, Monesi versus Zaiwu and the boys. Like, there's no other superstar in the same way. Like, Rops, when he's on, is up there. The best closer in the world type shit. But yeah, Zaiwu, Rops, then Flamesy, Mezzy, Apex are sort of almost the role players of the team. It feels a bit odd to say, but it is absolutely true. These two teams will play out another great series. We saw them play already at Blast Rivals. We saw them play before that at Pro League in the grand final, which was a 3-0 sweep. But the Rivals semi-final was 2-0 to Falcons the other direction. We saw a Nuke pick, we saw an Inferno pick, and a Mirage Decider. I don't think it's going to be altogether too different. I really don't. Vitality, they play a pretty good Inferno. Falcons play a pretty good Nuke. There's a good chance that's where we end up. I think in terms of veto changes, I doubt the permas are going to change. Ancient Overpass are going to be banned. Train and Dust 2 being interesting little maps in here. Could Vitality switch it up and pick a Dust 2 instead? Leave Inferno, see what ends up being the decider? Maybe. Would it change the series? I'm not too sure. These two teams, it is very form dependent who actually comes out on top. They're pretty evenly matched. The last time they played and Falcons won. MOUZ was fantastic. We got a good kickstand, and then the Riflers just didn't really carry their weight in the way we expect. And we've seen a bit of everything recently with Falcons. At this stage of the major, we saw a great Nico, a great Kyosuke, a very strong. He basically matches his Riflers on rating. It's just we expect more from him, being MOUZ. Then Vitality, ZywOo's had a poor season. ZywOo fans are going to not like that take, I assume, but he's just been poor. Let me just whip out the numbers. This is all relative, of course. Before everyone starts crying that, oh, ZywOo only got that and you call him poor. Like, yeah, he's a 126. Considering we're used to a career average of a 130 out of this guy. The KPR is down to a 0.8, a flat 0.8. Like, I know he's never been the KPR king, and in that sense, he's always been just really good at getting the right kills and taking the good deaths, min-maxing every stat. He's been the king of rating in that sense in a lot of ways. He's just not been as good as he should have been, and he's not been as good as he was in the first half of the year. So ZywOo may not be as impactful, as good as we'd hoped. Just in the last sort of season, if he can step it up and play like prime ZywOo, like ZywOo from the first half of the year, especially early on in their winning events, and he's dropping mental ratings and mental fragging numbers, I think that Vitality win. I think it's more likely, though, that Falcons, if Falcons make it past Spirit, Falcons win this game. It's essentially how I see it. If Falcons make it past Spirit, a really tough opponent, difficult maps to grind out against a really impactful donk, they get through that, I think they're getting through Vitality again. So give me Falcons going through. A Vitality Grand Final appearance would not be unexpected. I think this is one of the closest. This is probably, outside of the Grand Final, which would be a best of 5, and every best of 5 Grand Final involving one of these teams recently has been insane, intense, super close. The last time we had a truly one-sided best of 5 final, I think, might have been Vitality Falcons. Hang on, how close were those maps? I remember it being close-ish. It wasn't. Never mind. That was the last time we didn't have a close final, was Vitality Falcons specifically. Every grand final that's involved Furia pretty much has been pretty tight, pretty closely contested. Spirit, the last time they played a grand final, absolutely smashed MOUZ, but there were a bunch of reasons for that. Give me Falcons in the grand final. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a banger either way. I'm really looking forward to it when I get to the arena. Walking into Falcons Vitality. Oh, that's going to be so good. But on the other side of the bracket, Furia MOUZ. We've got the feel-good story of the major. If they make it, honestly, just making the top 4 again, the top 4 season that has been MOUZ, that'll be insane. Here's the problem. There would be heavy underdogs in this game. Just to whip out some of the map preferences. MOUZ have beaten Furia in a game that doesn't matter, as people say. In a group stage game, a decider game, actually as people say, as I say, I typically don't take much notice of decider matches. They're, to me, not a big deal. Technically, you got the win, that's all well and good. I mean, it took you overtime on map 3 to get it done. But it's just not typically what we expect. I mean, the maps we saw there, we got an Inferno pick out of MOUZ, an Overpass pick from Furia, and a Train decider. Quite likely we get something similar. The decider may change. I reckon the picks stay about the same. Yeah, we'll get a pretty similar series in terms of the maps. Furia are going to be favoured just because they've looked as good in terms of the polish, structure, general strategic approach. They're more tactical, I think, than MOUZ in some ways, but they are at similar levels in terms of just quality of Counter-Strike play, because tactical doesn't mean better. Let's just be clear. I think sometimes that gets misconstrued, that the only good type of Counter-Strike a team can play is tactical Counter-Strike. Like, no, you can play looser, default-based Counter-Strike and play good Counter-Strike. And MOUZ have played really good Counter-Strike, sometimes a bit looser. But Furia, yeah, their structured approach, their way of playing has been really good. The way they support their players has been fantastic. And then the individuals have been popping off to a level MOUZ's haven't. Furia, they've got one of the 4 elite AWPers in the world. MOUZ have had far from that over the course of the second season. Torchy's had a decent sort of start to the major, but it's a lot to ask in terms of maintaining that overperformance. Xertion, Spinks, these guys who can have loads of impact, Spinks especially, they both have drop-offs in the playoffs. Now, sure, most teams, when you talk about their playoffs, they pad their stats a bit. They play a fifth, sixth type of game against a weak team and smash them sometimes. MOUZ, it seems like all year they just play the best teams in the world endlessly in playoffs. There's just no relenting for them. Let me actually just look at the stats in terms of 2025, big event. And let's look at playoffs. Let's go pick around one of the guys who's been here all year. Spinks, actually, yeah, they never made playoffs with Bruno. Big event playoffs. They faced Vitality for 21 maps. Falcons, 16 maps. Spirit, 11 maps. Everyone else is 5 or less, including Furia. They're going to play 3 maps against Furia in playoffs. 2 maps against FaZe, 2 maps against the Mongolz. But generally, the bulk of their playoff maps, 21, 37, 48 of 75 playoff maps have been against Spirit, Falcons, or Vitality. It's been a brutal schedule for MOUZ this year. So their playoff numbers do mislead a bit. I just think that in reality, they are playing up against one of those top teams again, and historically they have struggled to beat those top teams, to really show up and shine against those top teams. Last time they beat Furia, it was in August, right? They played Furia in August at Cologne, and they did beat them in a quarterfinal in the 5th, 6th game. With a great Spinks, great Torji. If they can replicate that by some miracle, they will win. But what are the odds that if you go back on that, look at that game, look at the performances, you get a sub 1.0 rating out of Keserato and Yakindar and Yuri? Quite unlikely. Quite bloody unlikely. So, yeah. MOUZ have an outside chance, and I think MOUZ making the grand final for me would be not the best situation in terms of, the best Counter-Strike match we can have in the grand final, but it would be such a great story. It'd be like FaZe making the win happen at Antwerp. Like, that was so satisfying. Narratively, in terms of the vibe of the team, as someone who's not aggressively anti-Israeli, I would have nothing but joy in my heart for these players making the grand final, potentially winning a major, given how I followed their careers, given the development, the struggles. But realistically, I think Furia are the better team. Furia have been the better team. They've been ramping up all season. August is a long time ago. Cologne is a long time ago. It was a great MOUZ performance back then. That Cologne grand final appearance was fantastic, but this is not the same. It's not the same Furia. It's just not the same Furia. Let's talk about the grand final. This is our final thing to talk about. I expect, look, my pure calculating brain expects a Falcons Furia grand final. It would not be alarmed. It wouldn't be surprised by a Vitality Furia grand final. It would be shocked at pretty much every other outcome. Like, I think every other outcome is far less likely, but every other outcome is still cool. I think, if we saw, let's say, the least likely of the upper half, say Mongolz in the grand final against Navi, you would say it's a ridiculous, like, statistically, an aberration. But you would still be excited, because that would have meant the Mongolz would have beaten Vitality, likely then beaten either Falcons or Spirit, and then made the grand final. Navi would have had to beat Furia, then likely MOUZ, hell, FaZe is still one hell of a game, just to make the grand final. Both of those winners would be considered worthy winners. They wouldn't have been teams who fluked versus, terrible opposition. It would be a crazy set of circumstances, massive overperformances, individually, like, ridiculous. Hell, we might even be talking about another fluke major win, but it'd be so good. Like, they wouldn't have had to just, beat a CCT Cup worth of playoff opposition. It would be a legitimately entertaining ride. Instead, I think we end up with a Furia Falcons best of 5, as we did back in Blast Rivals, I believe was the last event we actually saw. And that was an awesome best of 5 final. Went 4 maps, and after map 1, it looked a bit strange. The 13-2, 13-3 rather, out of Falcons. Strange setting. And then 13-9 for Furia on Nuke. We're back to 1-all. Okay. Kind of traded map picks. Strange over-under performances in both directions. What now? Well, we saw what happened. We got back-to-back overtimes, double overtimes, to settle that series. We've got a train game where Mordor activated late, and it was, honestly, did some of the most absurd shit we've seen all of CS2 in terms of AWP performance. I mean, those who believe the AWP still cannot be used are objectively misunderstanding or not watching the game. Like, if you see these top AWPers play, you can tell the AWP is still well and alive and well. It's just there's too many bums. And then a Mirage that had some decent performances from the usual suspects, but more importantly, a really strong Yakindar to close things out eventually. I mean, man, if m0NESY gets any superstar help in that grand final, it goes the other way, right? If he gets a Kyosuke who gets an extra couple big entries, if he gets a Nico who finds a mid-round moment to clutch up to, you know, make a 2vx situation winnable, you know, do some magical Nico stuff, Falcons likely win that best of 5. This best of 5, all bets are off. Now, we've seen Nico in a grand final of a major before, twice. Yeah, just twice. Both times, they've gone wrong. Now, not explicitly because Nico sucked eggs. You know, it wasn't just because Nico isn't a good major grand finalist. He's actually been in his career pretty good, I think, at majors overall. He's had bad majors, he's had great majors, he's had good majors. But the grand finals have been, the results have gone the wrong way, and he's had one good one, one bad one. The FaZe Cloud9 grand final, which we all remember. The Inferno, he actually plays decent, but he's not good enough in map 1 and 2, and that's probably why they're there. And then the G2 Na'Vi grand final. Look, Ancient 16-11 in favor of Na'Vi. That was a pretty one-sided map, if I remember correctly. I think that was that Na'Vi's pick? No, it was Ancient. Ancient was G2's pick. Okay. Yeah, memory is not what I do best, but looking back, I remember moments, I remember highlights, I remember Simple from that grand final. But then the nuke, you know, when things are supposed to be down and out, you know, you've lost your map pick, you're going to Na'Vi's map pick of nuke. He delivered a hell of a game. Everyone just remembers, of course, the internet only remembers him missing a deagle shot, which he missed. Some people got really into the idea of it being random. No, his crosshair wasn't on the head. Shut up. But more importantly, it was just a really strong nuke. Like, he played a fantastic game. At death's door, Major's about to finish. Major's about to be lost. He dropped 33 and 29 in double OT. Basically going, like, frag for frag with Simple Electronic was Nico and Hunter. Hunter to a lesser extent in terms of the actual overall impact, but still had plenty of kills. If we get that version of Nico, we get the Stockholm version of Nico, and we get m0NESY playing his best, a lot of ifs, it'll go their way. The logical betting man tells you this is Furia's major win. They've played the best CS leading up to it, and more importantly, they've been winners. They've been able to clutch up. They've been able to just deliver time and time again. I have Furia winning the major. All right, if you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me your thoughts on my picks. You might be realizing quite simply that this is not the most innovative or different or original set of picks. I'm not trying to be innovative, original, or different. I'm just trying to be realistic. And whilst there are chances for everyone in this major, and I think the biggest chance of someone actually making an upset happen is Spirit Falcons. Like, that's a really strong chance of this just completely getting fucked over. Spirit can make a grand final appearance here. It's always an option. I just don't see it as something I should logically predict. So I'm not going to. And Furia should make the grand final as well. Even if there's an upset MOUZ FaZe, they should be there. So yeah, those are going to be my picks. I hope you appreciate at least my reasoning. I know they're not too clickbaity, too crazy. They're not trying to be. I'm just trying to see which team I think is actually just going to win this. And that's going to be it. So yeah, if you're going to be there in Budapest, I'll see you, maybe. I'll be there Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, come say hi if you notice me. And if you want to, rip me in person. Like, if you don't want to leave a comment, but you see me in person in Budapest and I'm wrong about something you totally predicted, bro, come have a debate. Come argue with me. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what I missed. I always love hearing it. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.